What if a fleeting moment in the shadow of New York's skyscrapers could unravel the very fabric of what it means to be human? Picture this. It's 2014, and in a city that thrives on the relentless beat of ambition, Arianna Huffington, a name, synonymous with media triumph, a woman who bent the world to her will, sits across from the Dalai Lama, a monk whose gentle presence seems to defy the chaos around him. This isn't just a meeting. It's a seismic clash of universes, a whisper from eternity that demands we pause and ask, can the fire of personal success ever burn alongside the quiet glow of universal compassion? I've lost sleep over this moment, not because I know every word they exchanged, oh, how I ache to hear it, but because it feels like a mirror held up to my own fractured soul. Who are we when we strip away the titles, the trophies, the endless striving? In that imagined room, beneath the hum of a city that never sleeps, two lives collided, Huffington, the embodiment of Western grit, and the Dalai Lama, a beacon of Eastern serenity. And I can't shake the feeling that their encounter holds a truth we're all desperate to grasp, a truth that might just save us from ourselves. Arianna Huffington's story is one I've replayed in my mind 1,000 times, each telling more, electrifying than the last. Born in Athens, Greece in 1950, she was no stranger to uprooting herself, first to the intellectual crucible of Cambridge University in England, then to the raw, unyielding energy of the United States. By 2014, she was a titan, the architect of the Huffington Post, a digital colossus launched in 2005 that didn't just report the news but shaped it, amplifying voices in a world drowning in noise. She was a force, bold, brilliant, unstoppable. But oh, the price she paid. I can still feel the weight of it. In 2007, she collapsed in her own home, her body crumpling under the strain of sleepless nights and endless deadlines. Her cheekbone cracked, blood stained the floor, and in that shattering moment, she faced a void I've glimpsed in my own quieter ways. "What is all this for?" she must have whispered to herself, staring into the wreckage of her triumph. From that abyss sprang Thrive, her 2014 manifesto, a clarion call to redefine success, not by the cold calculus of money and power, but by the tender metrics of well-being, wisdom, and wonder. Isn't that a revelation? It's as if she stumbled into a secret I've been chasing my whole life, and I can't help but wonder, was her meeting with the Dalai Lama that year the key that unlocked it all? Now, let's turn to the Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th of his line, a figure who feels less like a man and more like a living parable. Born in 1935 in a dusty Tibetan village, he was plucked from obscurity at 2, declared the reincarnation of a spiritual giant, and thrust into leadership at 15, as his nation teetered under China's shadow. By 1959, he fled across the Himalayas, a refugee at 24, his homeland swallowed by forces he couldn't fight. From his exile in Dharamsala, India, he spent decades preaching peace, his voice a soft thunder against the world's storms. In February 2014, he was in New York, speaking at the Beacon Theater, then the Javits Center, offering teachings on compassion in a century that seems to mock the word. "The source of happiness is a warm heart," he said, "and every time I hear it, my chest tightens. Because isn't that what we're all searching for? Did Huffington sit in those crowds, her pen flying across a notebook? Or did they meet in a hidden corner, away from the spotlight? I've scoured the records, his visits, her interviews, and while the exact moment eludes me, the possibility sings. She'd spoken with him before, in 2012 in London, a conversation she called life-altering. In 2014, with Thrive hot off the press, their paths crossed again. Fate? Destiny? Oh, I want to believe it was more than chance. Let's dream it into being, because, goodness, sometimes imagination is the only way to touch what history hides. Picture New York's skyline. a jagged hymn to human will, piercing the sky as the sun dips low. Inside, maybe a grand hall, maybe a modest room with creaking chairs, Huffington and the Dalai Lama face each other. She's all fire, her questions, sharp and hungry, honed by years of grilling presidents and poets. He's all stillness, his answers like water smoothing stone, his eyes twinkling with a wisdom I can only dream of touching. What did they say? Did she ask, "How do I keep building without breaking?" Did he reply, "Happiness is not something ready-made, it comes from your own actions," as he so famously said? I see her leaning forward, her voice a mix of awe and urgency. I see him nodding, his laughter a melody against the city's roar. Oh, to have been a fly on that wall. I'd have asked him, "How do you carry so much loss and still smile?" I'd have begged her, "Tell me how you found the courage to change." What would you have said, standing in that sacred space? This moment grips me, claws at me, because it's a window into the war we all fight. The self versus the other. The rush of doing versus the peace of being. Huffington's life was a supernova of ambition, a story I've envied, feared, and secretly longed to live. She climbed peaks I can barely see, built an empire that reshaped the world. But that collapse, oh, it haunts me. It's a warning etched in my marrow. Chase too hard, and you'll fall. The Dalai Lama, though, he's the balm I didn't know I craved. His whole being radiates a truth I've felt in fleeting moments. We're not alone, we're bound, woven into each other's lives. My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness, he said, and I want to shout it from rooftops. Yes, but how do we live it? Their meeting feels like a bridge I'm desperate to cross. Can I chase my dreams and still hold space for others? Can you? Isn't that the question that keeps us awake at night? I've been wrestling with philosophers to untangle this, because, Lord help me, their words are sometimes the only light in my confusion. Kierkegaard, that tormented soul, maps life in stages. The aesthetic, all pleasure and glory. The ethical, duty to the world. The religious, a leap into the unknown. Huffington's early years were aesthetic to the core, dazzling, fierce, a race to the summit. That 2007 fall? That was her ethical reckoning, a voice crying, "You're not the only one who matters." Meeting the Dalai Lama in 2014, I swear it was her religious plunge, not into dogma, but into a purpose beyond herself. For him, it's no plunge, it's the ground he walks. Compassion isn't an add-on, it's the root of everything he is. And me? I'm stuck in the aesthetic, flirting with the ethical, terrified of the leap. I see myself in her ambition, in his calm, and I wonder, where are you? Are you running, pausing, or jumping into something bigger? But the Dalai Lama's compassion, oh, it's not some fragile thing. It's a force, a wildfire that burns away selfishness. In The Art of Happiness, he says joy comes from turning outward, from seeing others as us. I've tasted it, helping a stranger, listening to a friend, and it's like sunlight breaking through clouds. Huffington must have felt that, pouring her soul into Thrive, begging us to thrive, not just survive. Yet, I stumble here. She's a giant, her voice echoing from penthouses, while he's an exile, his people silenced. Can her compassion match his depth? I want to scream, yes, it must. But doubt gnaws at me. Nietzsche storms in, all thunder and scorn, shouting that power is life, that compassion weakens us. He'd cheer Huffington's empire, sneer at the Dalai Lama's kindness. I've felt that rush, the thrill of winning, the high of standing tall. But then I hear the Dalai Lama's chuckle, and I falter. What if power isn't the answer? I whisper to myself. What if it's love? Tell me, am I a fool to hope? Hegel pulls me back from the edge with his dialectic, and oh, how I cling to it. Huffington's ambition is the thesis. Raw, towering, unstoppable. The Dalai Lama's compassion is the antithesis. Gentle, boundless, subversive. Their meeting? A synthesis, a glorious collision that births something new, ambition that heals, success that shares. The real is the rationale, and the rationale is the real, Hegel wrote, and I see it here, a truth unfolding in that New York moment. But it's not tidy, is it? His exile, her privilege, they clash, they grate. Camus steps in, all absurd and defiant, saying life's a mess of contradictions. The Dalai Lama's stateless smile, Huffington's gilded struggle. It's absurd, yet they keep going. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart, Camus wrote, and I feel it. They're both absurd heroes, fighting the void with hope. Me too. I'm trying, failing, trying again. Aren't you? Picture them once more. Huffington's voice rising, the Dalai Lama's eyes alight. Did she cry? I'm tired of breaking? Did he murmur, "You're enough as you are"? I've wept imagining it, because I've felt that weariness, that longing to be whole. Their meeting isn't just history. It's a call ringing through time, a plea to rethink everything. What's success if it leaves us hollow? What's life if it's all for me? In New York, where dreams soar and shatter, they dared to dream, differently, not of more, but of better. I've started asking, shouting, really, what's my thrive? What's yours? For her, it became a crusade. She left the Huffington Post in 2016, launched Thrive Global, chasing well-being for all. For him, it's eternal, compassion, always compassion. For me, it's a spark, a fragile hope to live with fire and grace. As night fell over New York that day, they parted, her to her whirlwind, him to his exile. But something lingered, a flame I feel now, on March 21st, 2025, as I write this. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, Gandhi said, and I see them nodding, Huffington with a spark, the Dalai Lama with a bow. Their meeting wasn't an end. It was a dare flung across the years. So I ask you, scream it, plead it. Will we keep running the old race, or will we dance this new one? Ambition and compassion entwined. Oh, what a world we could build. I'm stepping toward it, heart pounding, soul ablaze. Will you join me?